There's something about the Ouija board that draws people in: curiosity, boredom, disbelief. But what happens when it responds with something you didn't expect? What happens when it doesn't stop moving? Even when no one's touching it anymore. One spirit spelled out words in a dead language to warn of nightmares. Another left a message in the fire, one that didn't burn. And then there's Zozo, always Zozo. Sometimes playful, sometimes not. And sometimes it's still there, even after the board is gone. Let's begin. Story 1. The Zozo lamp smash did a Ouija session earlier today with my 2 brothers. Just a regular board. Nothing fancy. We ask the usual, is anyone there? The marker starts doing these circular motions. Slow at first, then faster, until it finally slides over to yes. We ask for a name. More circles. Then it starts jumping back and forth between Z and O, just non-stop. Z O zo 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 over and over. At that point I just kinda laughed and said something sarcastic. Like, why are you being so hyperactive, Zozo? Except I used some less family-friendly words that I probably shouldn't have. And right then, without anyone touching it, the lamp on the table fell, just tipped over and crashed onto the floor. Me and my brothers all froze. The air changed. We didn't say goodbye to the board. Just pulled our hands away, boxed it up, and put it away fast. We haven't touched it since. I don't know if it mattered that we didn't say goodbye, but we never said it. And that name's still in the back of my head. Zozo, Zozo, Zozo. Story 2, Midnight Mind Reader, and the Throat Slasher. I've used my board a lot, like way more than I should. I've done sessions at my place, at friends' houses, different spots. And yeah, Zozo comes up pretty often. Sometimes the marker will go backwards through the numbers too, like 9876. Just weird stuff. But it's not always Zozo. Sometimes when you ask a spirit for a name, you get these strange jumbles of letters. Just nonsense. Except, the thing is, I've had moments where I'd think of a question in my head, and it would answer. Didn't say it out loud, just thought it. One time I was doing a session with a friend. We kept it going all night. The board was most active right around midnight, and even more so after 3 in the morning. That's when things started to get strange. After the session, we both crashed out in my room. Nothing weird at first. Then I had this dream. Dark figure, shadowy, full of hate. It was holding my friend down. I couldn't move, but I saw it dragging something across his throat, like it was trying to end him right there in front of me. I remember the sound. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, final. And then I wake up, but I'm not lying down. I'm sitting upright in bed, and I'm staring down at him, at my friend, sleeping on the floor. My head was tilted down at him, like I'd been watching him for a while. It took me a few seconds to even realize I was doing it, like my body had just done it on its own. Then all of a sudden, I felt something snap inside me, and I dropped back into bed, like someone had just hit the off switch. I was out. I don't know what happened that night. Don't know if it was all in our heads, or if something from the board followed us. But ever since then, I've been more careful. Midnight and after, that's when the weirdest things always seem to happen. Story 3. The Gaelic Spirit Translator. This happened at a friend's place during a Ouija session. One of our friends brought along a video camera. It had been charging all day. We wanted to record everything. The board starts off like usual. Spirit spells out what looks like gibberish. But then I start to recognize some of the patterns, bits and pieces that look familiar. It hits me. They're Gaelic. I didn't say anything out loud at first, just sounded out the letters in my mind. Then the camera, which had been fully charged and untouched, just dies. No warning. Gone. So I ask the board, do you speak English? The planchette slides to no, and stays there. I ask, are you trying to spell in Gaelic? Yes. Do you want me to translate the messages? Planchette moves hard and fast to yes. At that point I ask if it's alright for me to take my hand off the board. The planchette jerks to the center, then shoots back to yes. then moves to goodbye. After that, it doesn't move again. So I go online and start translating. I have a few sites I use, and sure enough, the words are legit, really old Gaelic phrases. Almost every message is advice, not vague stuff either. Real direct suggestions for people in the room. A couple of them had been dealing with hauntings and crazy nightmares. I head back to the group and tell them what I found. Everyone's visibly uncomfortable, but they agree to try the advice anyway. We go back to the board. I ask if the spirit is still there. Immediately, yes. I ask, do you want anything from the group? No. Do you want something from me? Yes. So I ask what it wants. It spells out a Gaelic word that translates to strength. Do you want my strength? No. Do you want me to become strong? Yes. Will you help me be strong? No. Will you help me become stronger in an indirect way? Yes. After that, I say goodbye. And the second we end the session, the whole room feels lighter, like actual weight lifted off us. Even crazier, the video camera. It clicks back on, just like that. The people who followed the advice, their problems pretty much stopped right after. No more nightmares, no more weird stuff in their homes. I don't know who or what that spirit was, but it felt different from the others. No tricks, no threats. It had a purpose, and whatever it wasn't trying to scare us. It was trying to help. Story 4. The Haunted Furnace at Rado House. This happened in Calgary, at a place called Rado House. It's about 100 years old. Used to be a convent for nuns, but now it's a group home for teens ages 15 to 19. The place already had stories. People said it was haunted, especially the basement. I went down there one night with 3 others, 2 guys, 2 girls. There's a bathroom next to the stairs down there, and people have claimed to see a little boy standing inside, just for a second or two. Residents, staff, multiple people have seen him, but the real fear is the boiler room. Everyone says it's the worst spot in the building. People walk in and immediately get hit with this feeling like pure dread. I remember just talking about it started giving me that feeling again, like something thick in the air. Anyway, we brought the Ouija board with us. One of those glow-in-the-dark ones. Cheap, probably made in China. We set it on top of this big furnace, and the second we did, the furnace lit up. Not a flicker, not random. The whole bottom glowed. I figured maybe it was just bad timing, but it was enough to freak everyone out. We started the session, but both girls bailed almost immediately. And to be honest, I didn't blame them. I was scared too. Next day, those same girls said they felt this overwhelming urge to destroy the board, not just throw it out, burn it. So they did, burned it and tossed it into someone's yard nearby. And that should have been it. But later down the street, behind a fence where there's this little carved face, a wooden face with a small hollow behind it, we found the board again. Totally unharmed, not melted, not cracked, just sitting there behind that carving. It was definitely the same board, same weird plastic, same glow-in-the-dark lettering. Somehow, after being lit on fire and thrown away, it showed up again like nothing ever happened. I still don't have an explanation, but I haven't been back to Rado House since, and if I ever do, I'm not going near that furnace. Story 5. The letter G and Geraldo. I was around 13, me and my friends. 4 of us total were in that middle school phase where you're all trying to be edgy, trying to be cool. So we made our own Ouija boards. Just paper and markers. We'd bring them to school, sneak off to secluded spots and play with them in secret. Real cloak and dagger stuff. We thought we were doing something dangerous. Most of the time, nothing really happened. We'd ask the board for a sign, and sometimes we'd get messages like, "You're going to die," or threats about our families. But honestly, nothing ever came of it. We thought it was all just edgy nonsense. Then, one day, we were playing around again, and this so-called spirit told us we should stop using the board. Naturally, we told it to go away. Even said some things I wouldn't repeat now. Then we asked for a sign. The planchette moved straight to the letter G, and just stayed there. Didn't move again. We kind of laughed it off. Later that day, we were all in the car with one of the girls' moms. I'll call her A. She was driving us somewhere, and out of nowhere she says, "Hey V, your grandfather is here." Geraldo, right? V turned pale. I mean absolutely pale. Then A's mom keeps going. "He says you girls should stop playing with a board. Some kind of board. I'm not sure what kind, a Ouija board." We froze. None of us had told her about what we'd been doing. There was no way she could have known. And V, she had never mentioned her grandfather's name around A's mom before. Geraldo, G, same letter the board got stuck on. Then she scolded us. Not like she was mad, but more like she was genuinely scared for us. Told us to stop messing with that kind of stuff. Even now, I try to rationalize it. Maybe she guessed. Maybe she knew somehow. But no, she couldn't have known about the board. And she definitely couldn't have known about V's grandfather. That's the part that sticks with me. The board gave us a warning, and somehow, A's mom delivered the message. Story 6, Mount Madonna and the Dead Cousin. I never messed with Ouija boards growing up. Ever. And I still won't. There's just something about them, some kind of curse that seems tied specifically to them and not to other divination tools. Even as a kid, I got that feeling. But it wasn't just instinct, it was something my mom said, or more accurately, the way she acted. She's a grade school teacher, bright, cheerful, always upbeat, except for one thing. Every year we'd drive over the mountains to get to the beach, and every single time we crossed them she'd go quiet. Real grim look on her face. I asked her about it more than once. "Mom, why do you always look so sad when we go over the mountain?" But she never wanted to talk about it. Then one year, I was 14, the same age she was when it happened, and she finally opened up. "You really want to know?" she asked. I nodded. She sighed. "On my 14th birthday, my older cousin brought me a Ouija board as a gift. I'd heard of them before, but I'd never used one. And honestly, I thought it was just for fun. I don't ever want you to use one. Ever." That hit me. My mom never curses, but she was serious. Dead serious. She told me they had been asking it all kinds of questions. Just being silly, not really believing in it. One of them asked, "Who's going to die first?" The board spelled out her cousin's name, the one who gave it to her. Then someone asked, "When?" The answer, "Soon." 2 weeks later, her cousin lost control of her car while driving over that very mountain road we were on, and she died. Flew off the cliff. No chance to survive. My mom told me she threw the Ouija board away the same day she got the news. "They said it was an accident," she said, "but I know what really happened. That thing cursed her." She didn't want to talk about it again after that. But she did one more thing. She showed me the spot, the exact place it happened. And I swear, every time we drove past it after that, I felt like someone was in the back seat. Sometimes, I even thought I saw a woman's figure in the fog, just for a moment. That story stuck with me. And to this day, I will never touch a Ouija board. Not ever. Story 7, Bathroom Curse and the Fetus. I had a Ouija experience once. Nothing dramatic. Nothing dark and stormy night. Just me, the board, and a stupid idea. I asked the ghost to stay while I used the bathroom. That was the first mistake. Something just felt weird. Like I was being watched. I ended up, well, relieving myself on the board. Yeah. Don't ask why. It was a mix of nerves and idiocy. I buried it in the backyard afterward, thinking that was the end of it. Next day, I got my period. Except, there was something strange. Inside was what looked like a tiny fetus. I didn't know what to think. I still don't. And the worst part, it didn't stop. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Story 8. The Celtic Berserker Warrior Gift. Someone had posted earlier about having some kind of strength unlocked by a Ouija board spirit. Like a gift. And honestly, I think I know what they're talking about. They said the board summoned an ancient Celtic berserker warrior and that it passed something on to them. A kind of invulnerability. Strength in battle. Power fueled by pure rage. And I get it. Because I had a similar experience. Same feeling of something being awakened. At the time, I didn't fully understand it. But later, when I started practicing, really practicing, I felt it. Deep in my arms, in my chest, this building energy that just exploded when I let it out. If you ever want to try it, this is how I did it. Go out into a forest, be alone, find a tree, or bury a post in the ground if you don't have one. Grab 2 sticks, or rocks, or even axes if you're that serious. Start hitting the tree rhythmically, like a beat. Start slow, then build up the tempo and intensity. With every strike, try to put everything into it, like each blow could take someone down. Then scream, not a shout, not a yell. Force air out of your lungs like a roar, like a bear, like a death metal frontman. It'll feel weird at first, but if it's real, if you were given that gift, you'll start to feel it. Like a tingling in your muscles, that adrenaline fire, the tunnel vision. After a while, you might find that you don't feel pain. Not in the moment, not even from cuts or bruises. Some of us have it. Some of us were meant to awaken it. And maybe, just maybe, the board didn't curse me, it prepared me. Story 9. The Black Clouds and the Wind Blast. I was 13 when it happened. In class one day, someone brought up Ouija boards. A few kids were curious, said they wanted to try it. The teacher, who was unusually chill about it, decided we'd do it outside since the weather was nice. It started off as a joke. We dragged a table out, set up a makeshift board, using Scrabble tiles and some paper. I was skeptical, into spiritual stuff, but still cautious. The planchette started moving. Strong, deliberate responses. It didn't feel like someone was pushing it. Some of the kids started cracking jokes, mocking whatever was on the other side. I didn't like the vibe. Told them to knock it off and be respectful. But of course they kept going, taunting it, pushing the board. Then without warning, the sky started to shift. 1 second it was clear. The next, black clouds were rolling in overhead. Like something out of a movie. Thunder, rain, just sudden and heavy. We all panicked and ran for shelter. 15 minutes later, everything was calm again. The sky was clear like nothing happened. But the weirdest part came after. For the next 3 years, I felt like something was following me. Every time I was alone, I could feel it, just out of sight. I never felt safe. Then one night, I was home by myself. That tingling feeling hit the back of my spine, and all the hairs on my body stood up. I knew something was there. I was standing in the hallway, and it hit me. Not a slap or anything physical, but this wave of wind, hard enough that I nearly fell over. Then it left, just gone. Never came back. I think whatever we called that day followed me home, and stayed with me until it had enough. Story 10. The Priest Who Made It Say Goodbye. This one's from my mom. She and a friend were messing around with a Ouija board at some restaurant-type place. Just being dumb, asking it ridiculous stuff, laughing at the answers, making jokes. Then a man walked in. He was wearing priest's clothing, older guy, looked serious, and the second he stepped into the room, the planchette slid all the way across the board to goodbye. Wouldn't move again. Nothing. Session over. Later, my mom found out he had performed exorcisms in the past. That board knew what he was, and it wanted no part of him. Story 11. Goat legs in the power outage. I was about 13 at the time, just hanging out with my best friend, talking about random stuff, like we always did. Somehow the topic of Ouija boards came up, and we both started saying how we wanted to try one. Thing is, her mom overheard us. Now this woman was a hardcore skeptic, total atheist, didn't believe in anything spiritual or supernatural. So when she suddenly flipped out, told us never to mess with that stuff, we were kind of shocked. She left the room, but I was like, dude, why is your mom being so intense about it? That's when my friend told me the story. When her mom was a teenager, she and 2 cousins had played with a Ouija board, just being dumb kids. They started feeling weird during the session, creeped out. Then the power went out. Everything went black. When the lights flicked back on a few seconds later, her mom swears that for a split second, she saw a pair of goat legs, red fur, hooves, nothing else, just standing there. Now, like I said, she still doesn't believe in any of this, still calls herself a militant atheist, still says ghosts aren't real, but to this day, if you ask her about it, she won't deny what she saw, and that's why she completely lost it. When she heard us talking about trying a board, that image never left her. Story 12. Bus Prophecy Slumber Party. Another story my friend told me, and this one's even darker. Her mom, same one from the goat leg story, had been babysat by an older cousin and a group of their friends when she was around 8. Pretty standard sleepover type thing. Late at night, one of them pulled out a Ouija board. They started asking questions, teasing each other, laughing, just kids, being kids. But then the board said something strange. It singled out the girl who owned the board and started saying she was going to die soon. Said she was going to go to some bad place after. Kept repeating it. Everyone thought it was just creepy nonsense. Until 2 days later, that girl got hit by a bus, killed instantly. Total freak accident. Or so everyone said. But my friend's mom, she never forgot what the board said. She never laughed about that stuff again. Story 13. Cross, Prayer and Instant Goodbye. This one happened to my sister. She was at a slumber party with her friends and of course someone brought out a Ouija board. Classic sleepover move. My sister didn't want anything to do with it. She's always been more on the spiritual side. Believes in good and evil, doesn't like messing with things she doesn't understand. She told them no, but they kept pushing her to try it. Eventually she gave in. But before she touched the planchette, she crossed herself and said a little prayer just quietly, under her breath. Then she put her finger on it. Immediately the planchette moved, fast and slid straight to goodbye. That was it. Session over. Needless to say, she's never touched a Ouija board since. And after hearing that story, neither have I. Story 14. Storm Shelter and the Man in the Hat. This came from my dad and his brother. Back when they were teenagers, around 16 or so, they were messing around with a Ouija board in an old storm shelter. You know the kind, round concrete room, single door, one bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling. They were joking around, teasing the board, not taking anything seriously. Then the light bulb started swinging. Not just a little sway. It moved like someone had hit it. One of the guys panicked and tried to leave. But the doorknob wouldn't turn. Then the light went out. Total darkness. Ugh! They screamed, stumbled around, and then the bulb exploded in a flash of light. My dad said it lit up the room just long enough for him to see something. Just for a split second. There was a man in a hat standing by the door, not one of them. He never told me what they were saying to the board before all that happened. Just that it was bad. My uncle had a similar story. Once got scratched, actual cuts on his face and back after another session. None of them ever touched a Ouija board again. Story 15. The Spontaneous Combustion Board. This one's short, but it stuck with me. Someone had made their own Ouija board, just pen and paper. Nothing fancy. They tried to use it, waited for a while, but nothing happened. No movement, no answers. And then out of nowhere, the board caught fire. Spontaneous combustion, no explanation, no one had a lighter out, no candles, nothing that could have caused it. It just ignited. That was enough for them. They never tried again. Story 16. The Irish Coin Board Spirit. I'm Irish and one day I got curious. I didn't have a real Ouija board, so I made one myself, just pen and paper. For a planchette I used a coin, didn't really expect much. I sat down and asked, "Hello?" The coin started moving. Spelled out random letters. Didn't make much sense at first. So I asked, "Who are you?" It replied, "HWY." Didn't mean anything to me. Tried again. "Who are you?" This time it said something like IAMT. Weird, but I kept going. "Are you Irish?" It moved to no. "Are you a demon?" It spelled me. Again, "Are you a demon?" Same answer, me. I wasn't sure if that meant yes or no. So I asked, "Do you speak English?" It said no. Only other language I speak is Russian, so I said, if you speak Russian, move to G. It moved to pay. I couldn't understand anything else after that, so I said goodbye. The coin slid to K. Then goodbye. After that I felt really strange. Hard to describe. Not scared exactly. Just off. Still don't know what I was talking to. Story 17. The Monopoly spirit. I was using a Ouija board one night, just goofing around. I asked if the spirit had a name. It spelled out, go to jail. Okay. Weird, but maybe just random. I asked if it had died in my house. It replied, this is Monopoly. Dumb person. At that point, I was done. Whatever spirit I contacted had jokes. Or maybe I contacted the ghost of a board game. Either way, I was officially weirded out. Who was the voice behind the board? Still no idea. Story 18. The racist ghost joke. I was 16 when I tried the Ouija board for the first time. My friends were into it too, so we all gave it a go. At first, nothing. Board didn't move. No responses. Nothing. We tried a few times. Still nothing. Eventually, I got impatient and yelled, forget you ghosts. And that's when the planchette moved. It spelled out, ooga wooga booga, where the white women at? I was stunned. Apparently I got a ghost with a seriously messed up sense of humor. Needless to say, we ended the session after that. And no, I never tried again. Story 19. Rickrolled by a spirit. I was just messing around one night, using a Ouija board by myself for the heck of it. Figured I'd ask a simple question. See if anything wanted to say something important. Suddenly, the planchette started moving like crazy. So I grabbed a pen and started writing them down as fast as I could. Once I put it all together, it said, never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down. I sat there staring at it. I got rickrolled by a spirit. Still one of the weirdest and funniest moments I've had messing with that board. Story 20. Blackout doppelganger. I was 18 at the time. I didn't believe in spirits or any of that. But my girlfriend and a few friends wanted to try the Ouija board, so I went along with it. We started getting responses. Really creepy ones. Like it somehow knew my friend's grandpa's nickname, and not the common one, the kind of name only close family used. It freaked them out, but I still wasn't sold. Eventually, we wrapped up and I headed home for the night. That's when things got weird. As I pulled out of the driveway, everything went black. I don't mean it was dark, I mean I blacked out. Next thing I know, my car goes full throttle, just takes off. I end up doing donuts in my neighbor's yard. No control, just chaos. Then, out of nowhere, a car pulls up next to me. It's my girlfriend. She rolls down the window and asks if I'm okay. But that doesn't make sense. She was supposed to be inside. I just left her at her house. I was still trying to process it the next day, so I brought it up. Told her how strange it was that she came out to check on me. And that's when she gave me this look and said, what are you talking about? I never left the house. I didn't see anything. I thought you just drove off. So, who was in the car? I've never gotten an answer. And honestly, I'm not sure I want one. Story 21. Cute spirit overload. I've always practiced only white magic. Nothing dark or harmful. Just cleansing rituals, protection stuff, good vibes only. One night, just for fun, we decided to pull out the Ouija board and see what might happen. I asked if any spirits wanted to talk. Immediately the planchette moved to yes, so I asked what kind of spirit it was. It spelled out cute LOL, and that's when things got wild. I suddenly felt this overwhelming rush of joy. Waves of energy flowing through my whole body. My skin buzzed with vibrations, and I couldn't stop laughing, like full-on tears in my eyes laughter. It wasn't just me, either. The energy in the room shifted, like something joyful was dancing around us. We asked a few more random questions, and the board started spitting out words like happiness, laughter, love, joy. Then something stranger happened. Everyone took their hands off the planchette except for me, and it still kept moving. Still spelling words like laughter and joy, non-stop. Finally, I took my hands off too. The planchette zipped straight off the board and flew onto the floor. That was, hands down, the best time I've ever had with a Ouija board. Story 22. The Ghost at the Gate. I was around 13, hanging out at a friend's house, with a group of 4 or 5 other kids. Bored out of our minds, we decided to make our own Ouija board and try it out. We set up in the backyard on a table. A couple of the guys chickened out and went back inside, but the rest of us were all in. We talked to a few spirits, mostly ones that claimed to be dead relatives. But then one came through, and said he was Cliff Burton, the old bass player from Metallica. Everyone was hyped, they ate it up. But me, I wasn't convinced. Meanwhile, my friend's cat was just sitting at the back door, eyes fixed on the yard, staring out toward the gate that led to the driveway. One of the guys decided to snap a picture of the gate, and there it was, a ghostly figure. Wispy, hard to see clearly, but definitely there, standing by the gate. Even though the spirit didn't seem hostile or anything, that image still freaked us out. We kept trying the Ouija board a few more times after that, and every time we did, Cliff Burton would show up again. Same story, same vibe. But when I tried it later with a totally different group, nothing. No Cliff, no spirits, no movement. Looking back, it still feels like maybe it was all in our heads, except for that photo. That part. That was real. Story 23. The Red Wax Drop. It was just a regular night, and I was bored. So I decided to make a Ouija board, figured why not. I set it up in my basement, surrounded by a bunch of white candles. Tried to summon something, anything. The planchette twitched a few times. It felt like it might have moved on its own, maybe. But most of what I got was gibberish. Nothing really stood out. Eventually, I figured I'd had enough, so I said goodbye to the spirits, turned on the lights, and started putting everything away. That's when I noticed something. One of the candles, the ones I'd lit myself, had a single drop of red wax running down the side. But here's the thing, I only used white candles. All of them were pure white. When I set them up, there was no red wax anywhere in the room. No red candles. Nothing that could have melted or dripped like that. Just one single drop. I still can't explain it. Story 24. Victor and Kathy's love and the seizure. Back in college, I was dating this girl, very Catholic. The kind that keeps a crucifix above her bed and crosses herself before every meal. One night, we decided to try a Ouija board together. Just the two of us, lights off, with a few candles flickering in the room. My old golden retriever was laying at our feet, completely relaxed. We set our hands on the planchette and asked a basic question, "Who are you?" It spelled out a couple of names, Victor Fulev and Kathy. Victor said he died in France during World War II. Kathy was his partner, and after getting the news, she couldn't handle it. Ended her own life. The tone of the session was weirdly calm, peaceful, almost. We talked with them about their lives, about love, and even asked them for advice. Then we asked if they could give us a sign that they were really in the room. The board answered, "Listen, watch." We asked, "Watch what?" It replied, "Watch, listen." Then after a short pause, it said, "Turn on." So we turned the TV on, and right there, first thing that popped up was one of those old telephone chat line commercials. Woman on the screen, smiling, talking into the camera. She said, "Hi, I'm Kathy." We both froze. That alone was enough to give us chills. But it wasn't over. We asked for a sign from Victor. The board answered again, "Watch, listen." And then it said, "Watch, dog." That's when my dog, who had been laying calmly by our feet, suddenly got up and walked across the room. She sat by the wall and started looking up, her head moving side to side, like she was following something. Then she collapsed. Full-on seizure. We jumped up in shock. She was shaking, and when she came to, she wouldn't come near us, wouldn't come near the table or the board. She bolted upstairs, like something had terrified her. And then, the board changed. Suddenly, the planchette started racing across the letters. It spelled, "You die, bird, watch, creek, C-U-N-T." It was like something else had taken over. My girlfriend was panicking at this point. She was shaking, clutching her cross, praying under her breath. She shouted at the board, "Get out of our house. You're not welcome here. We love God." The planchette screamed across the board, "You will die, bitch. Friday, die." Now we were both forcing it toward the goodbye, at the bottom. And it fought us, actually resisted, like something didn't want to leave. But we forced it there. And once it hit goodbye, it stopped cold. No more movement. We sat there in silence, too shaken to speak. My dog still wouldn't come back downstairs. I swear to you, every part of this is true. I've never touched a Ouija board again. Story 25. The board under the bed. When I was 13, I used a Ouija board for the first time. Nothing happened while we were using it. Just your standard teenage messing around. No movement, no spooky stuff, no real story to tell. But here's where it got weird. After we were done, I made the classic mistake. I put the board under the bed, didn't think anything of it. My aunt came to visit shortly after and stayed in that room, slept in that bed for about a week. Every single night she said she heard strange noises from under the bed. Whispering, scraping, sometimes tapping. It kept her up all night, every night. And ever since then she says she's never had a proper night's sleep. Not one. And it's been 7 years. I'm not saying the board did it, but I've never stored one under a bed again. Story 26. Spirit divorce chat once. During a Ouija session, I connected with a spirit who told me he'd been married while alive. But here's the twist. His wife was still alive. Apparently they divorced before he passed away, and after his death, she remarried. We chatted for a bit, and I asked him how he felt about it. He just said, same old stuff, just without a body. Like life kept going for him. Except now he was on the other side. It was weird to think about. Ghosts still dealing with relationship drama. Apparently the afterlife has no chill. Story 27. Gift from a spirit. Someone in the thread brought up something I hadn't thought of before. What happens when a spirit gives you something? They mentioned that if you accept a gift from a spirit, that spirit might become bound to you. Like it's not just a freebie. There's a connection, a link. They said you should be careful with that kind of thing. And honestly, it makes sense. If something non-physical gives you something physical or even something emotional, maybe there's a price. Equivalent exchange, I guess. Something to think about next time a friendly spirit offers you something. Story 28. The Watcher and the ritual process. There's something called a Watcher. It's not just a spirit. It's like a higher level entity. One that oversees the energy being exchanged through the board. Some people say they've got personal watchers, like guides or guardians, but when you're working with a Ouija board, the board's watcher outranks them. To get in touch with one, you've got to build a connection. If you've got a familiar spirit, one you trust, that's where you start. You call on them, then ask for the watcher of the board. Sometimes they show up right away. Sometimes they won't respond until you start asking questions. And sometimes they just don't show. If you do get confirmation that the watcher is present, that's when things get real. That's when you test them. You don't trust any spirit until the board's been changed, ritually shifted to the element of light. That's your protection. That's your safeguard. Only after that can you trust the answers. Otherwise you're just asking for lies. And even then, most of what they say, it's not new information. It's stuff you already know deep down, consciously or subconsciously. They're more like a mirror for your inner self. The answers have to resonate. People always ask if it's better to make your own board or buy one. The truth? Starting with a pre-made board is easier. Less chance of attracting low-level spirits feeding off your doubt. You need a clear mind. strong intent, willpower. You gotta tinker. You gotta validate things for yourself. That's the only way this becomes real. That's the only way to know the board is worth trusting. Once you've done that, then yeah, you can call on loved ones. Without fear, without second-guessing everything. But until then, it's all just noise. Story 29. The demon attached to my girlfriend's sister. So this started at a party. We were messing around with a Ouija board. Yeah. Messing around, not really using it right. Just treating it like a game. My girlfriend's sister was there too. She was terrified of it. So she put in headphones to block it out. Thing is, she'd been followed by something for a while. Her family had all seen it. A dark figure. Doors would open and slam on their own when she was around. People caught glimpses of a tall, shadowy man just out of sight. Up until that night, I hadn't seen anything myself, but I wanted to. I'd been waiting for proof. Real, undeniable proof. When my turn with the board came, I made a pact with my friend. Neither of us would touch the planchette. We'd let it move on its own, if it moved at all. I asked, "Is there anything following my girlfriend's sister?" It went to yes, so we took it further. We decided to go to her old house. It was empty since they'd just moved. No furniture, just us. The board and that feeling in the air. We set up in the kitchen, on the island counter. She went to the pantry and turned on the light. What was wild was that every time she left the room, or even got too far away, the thing would immediately say goodbye and leave, like it was tethered to her somehow. We kept asking it questions. At one point, I asked if it could move anything. It said no. Then I asked if it could move something if I was the only one in the room. Still no. But when I asked if it could move something if she was the only one in the room, it said yes. So I whispered, barely said it aloud, "Can you turn off the pantry light?" Silence. Then suddenly boom. This loud banging from the pantry. The light went out. Everyone screamed. People ran. Apparently something flew off the top shelf in there before the light shut off. We weren't done. Me and two others went to the room she used to sleep in. The second we walked in, I felt it. The air got heavy. Not fear, exactly. Just dread. Pure dread. We started asking questions again. Finally I asked the big one, "What is your name?" It spelled out, "God." Then goodbye. We left immediately. I haven't touched a Ouija board since. And the other two people in that room? They ended up throwing up. I was holding back nausea the whole time. I don't call it a demon just because of that one night. There's been more. Like the time it locked her door on its own, or blew out her light bulb, or threw her mattress. Even now, it's still with her. She gets these horrible dreams, wakes up saying it made her choose which family member to hurt. Sometimes it just makes her watch, and then she wakes up and sees the tall dark man standing in her room. She never tells us what the dreams are, but I asked my girlfriend and she said they're really bad. Too bad to repeat. It's been years, and that thing's still around. And the worst part, it was really polite when we used the board. Story 30. The mirror smile. At my friend's haunted house we didn't even have a proper board. Just a printed image on a wooden board and a key we used to point at the letters. Real DIY stuff. But it worked. Took it over to my friend's place. Place was known to be haunted. We figured we'd try talking to whatever was there. The first one we got was a spirit named Amj. At least that's what we assumed. Probably his initials. But he wasn't hostile. Just chill. A total bro. We talked with him for a while, and then he told us something else was there too. Said it was my friend's dead lover. From a past life or something. We thought that was it. Session over. Then I walked into my friend's mom's room. There was a big mirror in there, and as I looked into it, something flashed behind me. Just for a second. A figure, right behind me. It looked like it was reaching out, clutching my face, and I'll never forget the smile. It wasn't human. Not really. That image stayed burned into my memory. I avoided mirrors for 2 years after that night. Story 31. The board that trashed the room. We had a Parker Brothers Ouija board. Real mass-produced stuff. It was me, my brother, and a longtime friend. Classic setup, hands on the planchette, everyone accusing each other of moving it. We started talking trash to the board, saying everything you're not supposed to say, daring it to do something. Nothing happened. I was about to give up when my buddy suggested we try asking it to move something, anything, if it couldn't talk. We found a cat's eye marble and put it in the middle of the plastic lens on the planchette. Waited. Nothing. I got frustrated, picked up the board, chucked it into a trash can next to the storage rack. 2 points. Then we went into the kitchen, just the next room over. That's when we heard it. Bang, smash, crash. We ran back in. The room was trashed, stuff everywhere. And the board? It was sitting in the middle of the floor, planchette resting right over the word, yes. We shoved it back in the box, and stuck it under the crawl space. It stayed there until we sold the house, and that's where we'll leave it, for now. Another night of voices whispered through cardboard letters, of shadows that linger just beyond the edge of the mirror, and stories that refuse to stay buried. If you've ever had an experience with a Ouija board, or something that just didn't feel right, you already know these tales aren't just fiction. They're fragments, glimpses, echoes from the depths of the board. If something tonight stirred a memory, share it in the comments. We read every single one, and you never know, your story might be featured in a future episode. Make sure you hit that like button if this gave you chills, and subscribe if you want to keep diving deeper with us into the strange, the haunted, and the absolutely unexplainable. This is From the Depths of the Board, and we'll see you on the other side.